This is Renelle, and welcome to Quality Hang with Rod Brooks and Friends. And here he is now, your host, my main man, Rod Brooks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Renelle, and welcome everyone to a very special episode of Quality Hang. I started this show almost a calendar year ago, really as a flimsy excuse to hang out with my friends and have them be a part of the show. That's why I do the show with Marcus. That's why Renelle Brooks Moon is the first voice you hear on this show. It's why my friend Kevin and his band Werewolf on Holiday provide the theme song, the music you hear. Living Inconvenience is the name of the song, by the way. One of my friends to be a part of it. And like I said, it's a flimsy excuse for me to talk to my friends. It's why Bob Fitzgerald was our first guest. It's why Matt Mayoko and Amy Trask have all been guests on the show over this past year. But I really envisioned this show, I should say, the second part of it, of this show, I envisioned it to be a chance for me to make new friends and talk to people whose talents have influenced me or moved me in one way or another. People like Robert Ford, the play-by-play voice for the Astros, whose dad basically was the first journalist to tell the world about hip hop, the DJ and party scene back in the day that eventually turned into hip hop. It's why I've had a chance to talk to Greg Renoff about Van Halen, a band that he knows about. Wrote a book about great music producer and producer of Van Halen's classic albums, Ted Templeman. Having a chance to chop it up with Greg and talk about Van Halen, and having a chance to talk to the hilarious Roy Wood Jr. But tonight is special because of the interview you're going to see shortly. And I've been wanting to talk to this guy for, for decades, 3+ decades, and been trying to hook up with this guy. We were finally able to get it done. And the conversation went far beyond my wildest dreams. We were supposed to only talk for an hour. We talked for well over an hour and a half. We're not going to give you all of it. Had to make some edits to get it to a suitable broadcast length, but had a chance to talk to guitar hero and founder of Living Colour, Vernon Reid. And if you know guitars, or even if you're not a guitar, their biggest hit, Cult of Personality, and how good Vernon is at playing guitar and how good of a band Living Colour is, and how great that song, even if that's all you know, is their most ubiquitous song, their biggest hit, Cult of Personality. And like I said, the conversation went far beyond my wildest dreams, and we talked about a ton of things. And what I loved about Vernon, just to give a little background, when I finally got on Twitter, Vernon Reid was one of my first follows, just because, wow, it's Vernon Reid, why not? And when you follow Vernon Reid, you find out that he's very accommodating, just having conversations with people, mainly about music. And he's very, very giving in terms of talking to people about a subject that he's an expert in. And got to know Vernon in a couple of back and forths on Twitter, and through some DMs, said, hey, could you come on the show? And obviously Vernon is busy, blah, blah, blah. And it took a while, but we were finally able to do it. And credit to Vernon for taking time out of his schedule to try and find a way for us to finally get together and record an interview. And we did it late last week. So shout out to Vernon for giving of his time and really making an effort to fit me into his schedule. But once we got talking, man, we covered a lot of stuff. And you'll get to know Vernon more than just him being a guitar hero. Come to find out, he's a big car guy, a muscle car guy, and his love of cars is the reason why he was able to forge a special relationship with the great Curtis Mayfield. We talked about the fact that Parliament was Vernon Reid's first concert, and then he eventually ends up playing with the great George Clinton. Why CM Punk, the wrestler, chose Cult of Personality as his song. They played it at WrestleMania last year. His parents, where they came from, their influence on him, their musical influence, why Malcolm X is such a big influence in the band, far beyond the open of Cult of Personality, where they use a part of one of Malcolm X's speeches. Just so much stuff. I enjoy the interview. I think you're going to enjoy it as well. So here it is, my conversation with the great guitar hero and founder of the great Living Colour. He is Vernon Reid. Hope you enjoy. Thanks to you and Living Colour and Public Enemy, but specifically for you guys. Thanks for radicalizing me.
Right.
I appreciate that. Vivid came out. It was the end of my junior year in high school, and then Time's Up came out at the beginning of my sophomore year in college. So history's a lot that they teach you in school. Hit me right between the eyes. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Well, I'll pass on that to Will Calhoun, who wrote that song.
You guys, you did that for a lot of people. Have folks come up to tell you that, they were kind of just going along in life, and what you guys wrote and how it was sung and how it was played just kind of stirred up things in people that they didn't know that they had.
I'm always appreciative when I talk to fans and listeners who say, "Oh, when Cult came out or when Type came out, or that they were really young. They were 12, they were 11. They said their older brother or their older sister was into the band. You while you're in the process of living your life, you have no idea how you're affecting people or influencing people. And interestingly enough, it's been, so many people have said, "Oh, my first gig, my father took me to see you at such and such and so and so, and it was my first gig ever." And it's like, and it's almost like paying it forward because, I've had the honor of playing with George Clinton, and the first record I bought with my own money was Cosmic Slop, and the first concert I ever went to was War, Rare Earth, and Funkadelic at the Garden, and they were touring for Cosmic Slop. And years later, I got to meet George and tell him the very same thing. It's crazy.
Oh man, unbelievable. I can't wait to really just chop it up about music. But a few things I want to get into. I came late to the Twitter game. I was very anti-Twitter, but I started to get into it about 3 years ago, and you were one of the first people I followed for obvious reasons, being a fan. But what I noticed about you immediately, and it's still this way to this day, that you are so patient to people that, quite frankly, at times don't deserve patience, just from me, from the outside looking in. But you are so patient and giving on Twitter, and I'm amazed how willing you are to talk to strangers about something you are an expert at, about music and the music business and the people you've been around, like George Clinton, for instance, and you're educating people and you're telling stories about people that and that are with us and maybe are not with us anymore, and your experiences. With social media being what it is, why do you give of yourself like that to people who at times don't deserve it?
Well, I consider myself a fellow traveler in life. I don't think of myself as an expert, even though sometimes I use big words, but that's a whole other story. It's so funny because the thing is, it gets into how I learned, like, my vocabulary. Is like my father used to open the dictionary when I was a kid, and he was a big stickler on that. So sometimes I use like these words and phrases, but it's connected to something completely different from what people may think, and a lot of times I look at something I've written, man, that really is pretentious, but it actually is. But it actually is the way I think, you know what I mean? And and I was kind of made to think that way, and it's very so the whole code switching thing is something I'm very sensitive to. I think
Mm,
about it.
mm,
I mean, one of the things for me on Twitter, or what Twitter has become, because it has taken this super rightward turn, and that's because Elon Musk, who became a Twitter addict, a huge fan, like having that many, over 1 million fans, can be quite addicting. And suddenly Twitter became a factor in the Arab Spring and so many other kind of social movements, and then he acquired it. And a lot of people have left. I kind of have a certain amount of fan equity. I have
mm.
about 70,000 followers, and I'm kind of in the middle of the pack of celebrities. I mean, I'm not actually on the lower rungs, to be honest, because there are people with hundreds of thousands and millions.
Sure.
But my relationship with the people that follow me on Twitter is very unique, because I signed on as Vert22. I didn't sign on as Vernon Reid. I came in with my alias, and people found me. And one thing I'm proud of is there are no bots. There are no bots in my account. I didn't buy any followers. The people that follow me are actually follow me for real. And there are some of my followers are quite conservative, much more conservative than me. I'm not conservative. And my thing is, I'm willing to engage in reason and arg in I will talk to anyone if they're we're having an actual exchange.
Mhm.
I don't do the pejorative thing. I don't do the name calling. One way to get blocked is to start calling names. And then we're not engaged in conversation. It's not an
Absolutely.
argument. It's just
Absolutely.
perjuration. Some of my favorite people are actually quite conservative, and we connect on other things. We don't connect on politics, but we connect on social things. We connect on music,
Yeah.
And the thing, I think we have to find the places, and that's not to expiate or to excuse certain things. I won't do it. I will not, kowtow to racism. I won't support it. And sexism, racism, and gender things. I'm not there with that. But if we want to conversate, and we have to find some, common ground. Like I
Sure.
would say something about a particular artist, and a lot of times I learn things. I don't, I see the thing, that advantage, because I'm that old, right? So I saw the beginnings of hip hop.
Mhm.
I was too
Mhm.
young for Vietnam, but I saw how Vietnam affected the older kids in my neighborhood, the older brothers of friends of mine. Um, I've been through, all of those presidential, administrations,
Mhm.
from seeing the Kennedy Nixon debates. And I looked at I was a little kid, and I said, oh, the good looking guy's going to win. And that might be the beginning of my thoughts about that led me to write the lyrics of Cult of Personality. I'm a child of the Cold War and the civil rights movements
Mm.
and the Black Power movements and the women's movements and the beginnings of the gay rights movement. That was the background against which I came up, and I've lived long enough to see how hard won certain things are. And there was a soundtrack for all of it. That's
Yes,
the
sir.
other thing too. There's a soundtrack, and then to see how these things have shifted and how these things have broken down. And part of the thing is we're all surveilling each other. We're all over each
Mhm.
other. And there's a kind of it's ironic to me. Like I started the band Living Colour in 1984, which is the title of George Orwell's, celebrated book about totalitarianism, about, surveillance and whatnot. But nobody ever predicted that it wouldn't be Big Brother, but it's going to be Little Brother and Little Sister
Yep.
looking over each other's
Yep.
we're looking over and judging each other and doing and really trying to police each other's beliefs. It's a very weird thing that is nobody, Star Trek didn't predict the iPhone and the effect that it was going to have. Anyway, blah blah blah. Let me let you.
No, no, no. I mean, this is everything I want to talk about and more. You just hit on and just that bit of conversation, just to let people know our interaction and this conversation is happening because of Twitter. I
Yeah.
DM'd Vernon, and we went back and forth. He's busy, I'm doing stuff, but I DM'd him, and he said sure, and we eventually found a time. So it's good things can still happen on Twitter. That is for sure. If I remember correctly, I feel like you said at one point on Twitter that you had a muscle car and
I
you
did.
you were maybe going a little bit too fast. Are you a car guy? Because if so,
I do.
we
I
might have
do.
just become best friends.
Oh yeah, man. I had a 72 Mach 1 with
Yeah.
a 351 Cleveland, and it was eggplant purple with black rims. I mean, you couldn't tell me nothing. I mean, it was the Blackmobile. I mean, one time I was in the East Village, and I rolled up and I rolled down my window, and I had Al Green coming out of the car stereo, and this brother looked at me and he just bust out laughing because it was like basically I rolled up in a time machine. you know At one time I was pulled over by a police officer, and of course, I was like, oh shit, and he pulled me over to ask me what engine I had in the car. Oh man, I have such fond memories of that ride. But they say never fall in love with the car. A lot of gearheads say never fall in love with the car because basically, to paraphrase what boat owners say, boat owners say that a boat is a hole in a river you pour money into, and a muscle car, is basically a pothole that you fill with cash. If you're not a mechanic yourself, that's the thing. I'm not a mechanic myself, so I was at the mercy of a few shysters.
Yeah, yeah.
But when that car ran, it was a joy.
Oh,
It was a joy. It was really, really great. I have very fond memories. And the other thing too about that car is I met the Impressions. Right, there was a thing for Curtis Mayfield that was held at a Grammy function, and and Curtis Mayfield had been injured horribly in Brooklyn, at Wingate Field. A lighting rig wasn't well secured, and he basically got injured, and he wound up having a spinal injury and was in a wheelchair. So there was this tribute to Curtis, and all of the Springsteen and all the people that should have given tribute to him were giving tribute to him.
exactly.
And somehow, and they had the Impressions were there because they were doing a number, and we started talking about cars, and it was just funny because they were like, oh man, we all had Corvettes, and we used to drive. We used to drive from LA to Vegas. We do these weekend gigs, and we all drive ourselves, and we were maniacs. You know what I mean? Because I mentioned this my Mach 1, and then Curtis, because everybody had been super respectful walking up to Curtis, and then Curtis looked up from the chair and said, "I had a Carroll Shelby Cobra." And we were like, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, man.
You don't go to the lot and get those.
You had to go to an aircraft carrier."
Carroll Shelby.
Yeah. Carroll Shelby had a hangar, right? And you took delivery of that car. You had to go to Carroll Shelby's aircraft hangar and pick up your car, and that was and I have to say, I felt I really met Curtis Mayfield in that moment when he was talking about his car. I felt I actually met him because
y'all had something in common. Yeah.
Oh man, and all the and it was just all the years and everything melted away, and it was just like he was so. That car meant so much to him, and the fact that he went and had this thing, and that's incredible. So that's one thing about the car thing, like the car thing and the guitar thing, you can connect. Or no, because these are totemic objects. These are totemic objects, and they represent something really fundamental. And honestly, this is the thinking about America and being an American. The ride, the ride is a unifying principle.
Sir.
If you drive, right, the ride is one of those things that cuts through all the other nonsense.
Absolutely true. Cult of Personality has been a stadium anthem since you dropped that opening riff. You guys were big at last year's WrestleMania playing live for senior. You a sports fan? Are you guys sports fans?
You know what? We are to varying degrees, and the thing that was so interesting about connecting with CM Punk, the reason why he picked that song is this very emotional thing. He was in Little League in Chicago. And when he was 12 years old, his coach picked Cult of Personality for the team's get out on the field music. So whenever they went to play, they would play da 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 da. That would be how they ran out on the field. And then he said, "Yo, man, we won our championship to that tune." So that was his connection. And when he became a wrestler, that's the theme music he wanted.
I mean, and listen, those 12-year-old Little League championships, they stay with you forever. Not going to speak for him, but it's probably right up there with him being a superstar in WWE.
Well, moments of glory like that are indelible in life.
And so you're a New York cat. Are you partial to the? Well, yeah, I'm not going to mention a team because if I say the wrong team, because there's
I know. Well, we can. Well, hope springs eternal, and we don't want to jinx. You know what I mean? Because every time you get too head up about your chances, you can get hurt. You know what I mean? You can get hurt. You can get hurt. I remember, man, that 1986 World Series. We were playing at Tramps. I think the night of that last game. That last game was being projected. You know what I mean? And them winning that game just. I know it was kind of weirdly mythic. You know what I mean? It was kind of funny because I was thinking, man, if the Mets pull this out, we're gonna be okay.
You know what? You were right. I didn't know if you were a Mets fan or a Yankees fan. That's why I didn't want to say.
Because if Brooklynites and Queens, people from Brooklyn and Queens are predisposed to the Mets.
Kindred spirits, sure, yeah.
Kindred spirits, and folks uptown, the Bronx and uptown, they're more likely to be Yankees.
Sure.
Absolutely. There's that.
Yeah. I'm from Houston, and so that 14-year-old, if I saw Ray Knight, if I saw Lenny Dykstra, and if I saw Wally Backman walking down the street, I'm going to throw a punch at one of them. Now, I might get beat up, but the 14-year-old
but you're going to hurt somebody. You're going to hurt somebody.
I got to get vengeance for that 86 NLCS.
I know, man.
Y'all were supposed to see Mike Scott the next day, and y'all are not going to hit Mike Scott. You mentioned your parents. Who are they? Where'd they come from? And how did they get you on this musical journey?
Well, James and Mary Reid, my background is from the Caribbean. My parents are from this island, Montserrat, which is by Antigua, and they're part of the Windrush generation of people that left, just like the Great Migration from the south to the north and what have you. There was the same sort of migration in the Caribbean to England, to Canada and to America. So my parents first they immigrated to the UK. I was born in London, and the day after I was born, um, everybody knows Notting Hill from the rom-com, right? Well, Notting Hill was the site of the largest race riot in the UK history, literally the day after I was born.
Really? I've been there
Yeah.
before. I know about the history beyond the cutesy movie with Hugh Grant in it.
Yeah.
It happened the day after you were born.
Literally the day, August 23rd, I was born August 22nd, 1958. August 23rd, 1958, they had a major disturbance. Yeah. And I think that was, I think, the final straw for my parents to decide to go to the States. And I have an aunt who recently passed who stayed in London, and I had an uncle who was a double decker bus driver. So I was brought to first to Harlem and then to Brooklyn, but I was like 1.5 years old. So the only thing I know is Brooklyn, and that's been such a central part of my identity because I didn't grow up in London. My people are from the Caribbean, but I didn't go to Montserrat until after we finished Vivid. I went to Montserrat one time, and so I didn't, like it wasn't like I didn't fly on an airplane until Ron and Shannon Jackson put me on an airplane in 1980. So we had a very kind of working class background. And my pops was a mail sorter. He took a test and became an air traffic controller. That's one of the things that's so interesting about the federal job. Is that if you're in the federal system, they will put a bulletin. They had a bulletin board in all the federal workplaces, and they would put up openings for different jobs. And all you would have to do is take a test, an aptitude test. So if they have an opening, you could become an FBI agent from being a postal worker if you have the aptitude for it. They would just post. I mean, it was a very egalitarian and open sort of thing. And my pops, they were looking for air traffic controllers, and my father worked. He used to work with punch card computers, like the big stacks of punch cards. When computers were big wheel, were tape machines essentially.
Would take up rooms, yeah.
They would take up a whole room. So he was there. He was never a mail carrier. He was always working in the sorting, in the internal workings. And basically, he went out to Oklahoma and trained, and he was an air traffic controller. And he retired as an air traffic controller. And my mother worked for the Health and Hospital Workers Union for $11.99 for years.
And you mentioned your dad always made sure that the dictionary was open, and you were taking from it all of its goodness. Musically, music was always on in the house, or did they have a music?
Yeah, music was always on. Music was always on in the house. And music, the thing I appreciate about my parents is that they were taking in everything. So they were listening to R&B. They were listening to American music, but they were listening to calypso music and the early ska records and things like that. But like James Brown was like a deity, and like they were huge James Brown fans. They were huge Motown. They were huge Otis Redding and Stax fans. You know what I mean? So I was exposed to everything, and then all the things that would come on TV. I mean, TV was massive. I mean, that's how I became. It's like the Marshall McLuhan thing. The medium is a message, and that's like my first racial. Seeing Bull Connor and the Dogs and the Fire Hoses. That was my introduction to who I was, because I could look at my forearm. I could look at what was happening. Who the hoses were directed at.
Yeah.
And then I could look at my mom and my pops. I could look at my forearm and say, "Oh, that's." And I didn't have any separation.
That's how brilliant Goddard shot.
From that, because also my parents were big into the civil rights saying, I found out years later, my pops used to go see, he actually saw Malcolm X speak at the Audubon Ballroom. Like he used to go to the Audubon Ballroom and hear Malcolm X speak. So they were big time into the civil rights, movement, and I've come to find later my pops had dalliances with the Black Power movement, and it's why years ago he said, man, well, I thought about you know making a move, but I only didn't do it because of you and the family, but I was really thinking about it. So he said one time Malcolm X was making a point during one of his lectures, and he literally pointed right at him.
Spends a lot of the day in the shadows, and it's flat.
That must have been like for an ancient Greek to have Zeus come at you. That's going to get your attention.
You know what I mean? And it's so funny because he didn't talk about these things until much later on. Like he didn't. This wasn't like something. I think he was a little nervous about radicalizing me like super early, right? But he didn't say, he didn't. It was not the case when I was 7 years old. Hey, Malcolm pointed right at me. He was like, I am not trying to send you on a path, and then look at what happened regardless.
Right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like the irony of having Malcolm at the start of Cult, you know what I mean, without being told that story. I had no idea about that story. He only told me that after the song was out. He said, what?
You guys wanted "I Have a Dream" and couldn't use it. You said,
yeah, we wanted "Free at Last." Thank God Almighty, we're free at last. The King Foundation, they wanted money that we didn't have. It was gonna bust the budget. So then, I was dejected. I'm walking around Harlem. I was uptown, and I was on 125th Street, and there was a brother selling cassettes, and he had, I literally walked past him. He said, "In the few moments we have left, let's talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand." I literally heard that phrase, and that was from Street Speech to the Grassroots, and I bought the cassette. And then come to find out that my first wife went to school with one of Malcolm's daughters. Yeah, that's crazy. And she used to come, and Malak Shabazz used to come to CBGB's.
Yeah.
So there's all of this
connective tissue. This is crazy. Come on.
It's crazy. It really is, and it's kind of like because of when I wrote the lyrics, it wasn't connected to any music. It was almost like a poem, and it was really thinking about the fact. It harkened back, like I said, when I saw the Nixon-Kennedy debates. I don't know nothing about it. I said that the good-looking guy's going to win, and he did win, right? And I remember also Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald was shot by Jack Ruby on live TV, and I saw that. I saw that looking at TV with my parents. So all of these shocking media moments, were part of what they became part of my consciousness, as well as the show The Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone was the only media experience I've had where it's the first media experience I had where I witnessed something that scared me to death. It scared me, and then I couldn't wait to see it again, which is very weird.
Yes.
Right? Because it's kind of like I would avoid something that frightening. Because if I think about that little guitar arpeggio figure at the beginning in the theme song, for years I would hear da 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 da, and I would get a cold thrill down my spine. But Rod Serling
is a genius.
He's a genius, and he was like he was the first white guy. Other than Walter Cronkite, who I actually believe.
Oh man, I want to get into, you sort of hinted to it, the themes that you guys have discussed, putting it over the years. But And this might be the one question I really wanted to ask you over these years, and you alluded to it. Growing up in Brooklyn, with the epicenter of hip hop, obviously all of New York, but Brooklyn, the epicenter of hip hop, and the Bronx, where it started, but in Brooklyn, it's crazy. What was it like to see hip hop start in the Bronx and grow, and while you were navigating your own musical world and navigating the rock world? Did you immediately sort of see that rap and rock were kindred spirits and could be together and would be together, or did it take you some time to come to that conclusion?
Well, part of the thing is the way rock occurred to me was very, I heard Hendrix, like my hearing of Hendrix starts with the Band of Gypsies. So the Band of Gypsies is the all black, it's him with Buddy Miles and Billy Cox, right? And so I started listening backwards to Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding and the Experience. But I started out with the Band of Gypsies, and it has to be framed in the sense of being a young person, and the Vietnam War was such a big, frightening, ongoing narrative. And like the first time I heard Machine Gun, I was in the basement with the lights turned off. I had the record player on, the lights turned off. So I heard Machine Gun, and it scared the shit out of me. It was like, because it's that particular version, because there are multiple sets. He played it, like on the 30th and the 31st. He played it in 1969, and he played New Year's Eve 1970, right?
Regardless of where the home location
so
is, right over the left.
He forced you with the sounds of the guitar. He forced you to walk through the rice pad. He made you walk point. Yeah. Just from the sounds that he was making. And I'd never experienced anything remotely like that. And he was such a unique figure. I remember him on the Dick Cavett show, and he was just so a lot of it is like him, Sly and the Family Stone, and the Isley Brothers were part of the framing, as well as the Beatles, and but that the idea of and then later on I started hearing the fathers of rock and roll, mothers and fathers of rock and roll. But in my mind, rock and roll music was always the province of everybody, because hearing Santana, obviously the Beatles were a thing, the Stones, then Led Zeppelin, but it was also War, and the Mandrill, and the Band of Gypsies. That's so it was not a territory, exclusively.
Sure.
That was not exclusively for young white guys. It was never that. It was always in combination. I mean, like I said, hearing Funkadelic, Eddie Hazel, Maggot Brain, all of that is how rock occurred to me, and then I suddenly got an exposure to jazz. And see, the whole thing, for me, my whole process of coming into music was additive.
Are you predicting something?
The things I like just become added to a catalog of things I like. I didn't move through music like, well, I used to be into that, now I'm into this. It was kind of like, well, what do you remember? I will always love Otis Redding. I love Otis Redding from the first time I heard him, and it just never went. It didn't change, right? No. And I just added, Lennon and McCartney, and all the, the first time I heard "Sunshine of Your Love," I was, riveted by it. That's that your music. Those tunes had this effect on me that was like riveting. Like hearing Dionne Warwick was just an extraordinary experience. That's hearing these sounds coming out of a tinny, AM radio had a huge effect. Because it was not about Now it's like whether it's clean, people experience music just so differently. Everything was a phenomenon. Like hearing Al Green's voice the first time was just it was this extraordinary new thing. Al Green got added to Otis Redding. It got added to James Brown. That's the way. And the other thing is, I was never told. One thing, my parents didn't. They didn't police my taste in music. Like I wasn't told that's white boy music. You shouldn't listen to that. I think a lot of people are told what they should and shouldn't be into.
Yep.
Who they are and who they're not. And I was not told who I was or who I was not. So.
What was it like hearing Public Enemy for the first time?
Oh yeah, so like hip hop. So okay, so let me get. So I didn't really add about specifically hip hop. Weirdly enough, for me, it really starts with the DJs, and we had like mobile DJs.
Yes.
We had like mobile DJs, like Flowers, right? Like Flowers. Before you got to turntablism. Before turntablism, you had DJs and mobile DJs, and that's the thing. The party went from your parents' basement or a wedding reception, and then it became a separate event. So the DJs were the beginnings of it, and the DJs had this very open-ended. They would take breaks, whatever the break was, whatever was funky to the DJ, or had a pulse, or had an interesting kind of sonic texture. That's what would happen. Yep. Like one of the, back in Brooklyn, when I lived on Empire Boulevard, I had Lefferts Junior High. It was Lefferts Junior High, about a block away from me. And that's where the basketball court was. That's where the handball court was. And the DJs, mobile DJs, used to set up in the park on the weekends. Yeah. That's the first time I heard Trans Europe Express.
Oh, come on.
Like Kraftwerk. Trans Europe Express was massive. Black people, it was massive. It was massive. Massive. And Trans Europe Express came out right around the time BT Express, Express all. There's the whole, so these records and disco, so funk, disco, all of that, but Trans Europe Express, I'll never forget this one weekend where they were just blasting Trans Europe, that was blasting in the park, and everybody was with it. That's why when later on, when Walk This Way became a thing with Run DMC, DJs have been using the break and the intro to Walk This Way as a break for years. For years. Like, you know what I mean? They used to use that as a break, as an interstitial break between tracks. Before, and that riff and that beat, so when Run DMC, when they did that, it was not a shock. It was not, people were like, wow. And I was like, yo, that's been good. They did that back then.
We've been on that.
We've been on that. That was a thing, right? So that's the whole thing. And then and some of the earliest rappers were DJs themselves. I actually my first serious girlfriend was from the Bronx, and we used to go to Club 243, and DJ Hollywood, who doesn't, DJ Hollywood, he used to do these rhymes to get people out on the dance floor. DJ Hollywood never really got the credit because he's like a party DJ, right? Yeah. Whereas, Grand Wizard Theodore, he started he was the one that changed the turntable into an instrument unto itself with scratching. But all of these things were evolving and were happening rapidly. And then my other connection is that, I went to Brooklyn Technical High School, and I met this brother in the back of history class. We were just kibitzing and cutting up and acting a fool. And, rest in peace, my dear brother, Raymond Jones. And the thing about Raymond Jones is playing the Fender Rhodes part on Good Times.
Really?
Yeah, my buddy from high school was in the band Chic. with Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards and all of
Of
that,
course, and great Tony Thompson.
and the great Tony Thompson, you know, and yeah, yeah, man. So
It's like I'm in my notes here. Of course, I have Chic written down. Like Chic is I mean, it's absolutely.
yeah, Nile Rodgers was a big.
Oh,
Yeah, Nile Rodgers was a big presence on Twitter back in the days, you know. And so I remember going to a gig. I was invited there by Ray, and Rapper's Delight had come out, and Rapper's Delight had come out. And of course, they did a sound-alike. You know, they didn't do samples back then, but they got a play-alike version of Good Times. And you know, and I'm sure that was controversial, you know, because Good Times was a hit, right? Almost at the same time. Good Times was a hit, and then suddenly Rapper's Delight, based on the bass and Bernard Edwards, you know, bass line, you know, and so Chic was playing. And then all of a sudden they did that breakdown, and then Nile Rodgers started doing the rhyme for Rapper's Delight. And the crowd. I need to see that. The crowd went ballistic. The crowd went. They were already flipping out because this tune, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And so when he starts doing the rhyme for Rappers, the crowd went absolutely nuts. It was, and that was in that moment. In that moment, I knew that hip hop was real.
It was here.
That was a moment when I said, "This is not," because there's also a lot of people missed hip hop entirely because they was ghetto music. It's just some kids. It's a novelty thing. A lot of the R&B people didn't dig it. A lot of the funk people didn't dig it.
Don Cornelius did not like hip hop.
They didn't dig it, and you know, it was like who are these ruffians? Who are these ragamuffins? You know what I mean? And so it was very much discounted. But that moment, I said, "This is." So I've been privileged. These little moments, you know, and some of them things are not really noted. You know what I mean? That wasn't filmed. When Nile Rodgers went into Rapper's Delight, there were no cameras to capture that. But I saw the reaction of the crowd. You know, and
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
And it just kept evolving, and you know, like, you know, obviously before you get to bring the noise, you know, you have to deal with, you know, sucker MCs.
Yes, sir.
And they're all and basically tracks would happen and everything would be different. You know what I mean? Microphone theme changed everything. You know what I'm saying? Like these things will come out.
Radio. I mean, with LL dropping radio.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. You know, I mean, and there would just be, and it would just be like a track would drop, and everything you know, 3 is a magic number. What? You know, everything. It would just blow. I mean, tracks would drop. You know, the Ghetto Boys, My Mind Playing Tricks on Me. My Mind Playing Tricks on Me was a pivotal track. It's pivotal because it's the first track that even dealt with mental illness or talked about, you know what I mean? It talked about these kind of conflicts. So, you know, that was the thing about hip hop. I mean, hip hop was a kind of news. And before it became diverted to a billionaire boys club, but that's another story for another time.
I got to tell you, hearing one of my favorite musicians talk about Ghetto Boys from my hometown, from Houston, Brad Jordan from my neighborhood, from Sunnyside, from Acres Home. To hear you talk about them and their work is blowing my mind. So again, I'm gonna keep fanboying to a minimum. So you guys wrote about so much. Dangers of too much information. Science and technology not being all it's cracked up to be.
Mm-hmm.
Global wealth consolidation by a few. Media as entertainment. Media manipulation. Racism. Racial profiling. Gentrification. Cult personality. So much more. I know these are universal themes, but does it blow you away? Or or do you feel another emotion that here we are in the big 2026 and stuff you wrote about decades ago is acutely applies today, literally today, as we do.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because we wrote about things. I mean, the first record is basically a journal of life for us in New York at that time, and some of the things when we got to the second album, Time's Up, I was like, we owed so much to the Bad Brains from DC, like we give them homage and respect at all times. So the song Time's Up was really about a kind of homage to the brand. I wanted to do a kind of Bad Brains kind of track.
Sure.
Because we owed that much to them. And then Corey came up with these lyrics, and the lyrics were about the environment. And it was so novel, it was so odd. It was, I never heard, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's do that. Because I'm very much like, if something feels like, yo man, let it be what it is, and so. And we did it. It was just this odd thing. It turned out to be incredibly prescient. And, Time's Up is more relevant now than when we wrote it. When I wrote Information Overload, there was no email. Mm-hmm. It was very much, and I tell you, Information Overload, my dear brother, Greg Tate, rest in peace. I remember when Greg Tate, I'm a sci-fi fan from forever. And so I remember when Greg Tate told me, man, there's this cat, William Gibson. You have got to read this cat, William Gibson. And Neuromancer came out, and it was like, like the first line of Neuromancer, the sky was the color of a TV tuned to a dead channel. And it was like, you know what I mean? And so there's such a relatedness, I feel, in his vision, and so in his vision of the future, and so the idea of information overload, that was before personal computers was such a thing. There was no iPhone for it, and now that was before email, and now we have email. Every social media app has a messaging function. Who thought that would be a good idea? Because now you're getting, you know what I mean? You're getting messages. You're getting text messages from your people. You're getting, text message. You're getting messages on Facebook. Everything has a messaging thing. You're getting DMs from everywhere. And
everybody can be touched at any point in time during the day.
And it's not manageable. I mean, and really, it's actually not manageable.
100%.
It's not manageable to have a life out. Basically, the attention economy that's the thing that the shift away from, of course, time is money, and that's the whole thing about the attention economy. The money thing, that's why, just get this app. And they'll get the money from you later. The first they take your time.
Right. Well, the saying is, if it's free, you're the product.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a free lunch. That's why things said from long ago, that's why a game that's compelling and colorful and does its thing, you can get caught up. I'm a Plants vs. Zombies addict. I'm gonna tell you right now. My daughter's seen me play Plants vs. Zombies her entire life. It's crazy, right? And it's like that. People like World of Warcraft. People. I can only imagine that people that are into World of Warcraft for thousands of dollars to get weapons and to do things. There are whole their whole
Desires at the start to see the
economic ecosystems
sense.
based on very little animation, a few characters,
This
and
is
people are caught up.
14.
So all of this is going on, and now we've created these entities. Like, we don't understand human consciousness. I mean, I actually have been around lately. I've been around a few neuroscientists and giving lectures about the fact that they understand
On that new back tee.
neural clusters, and they know that the neural clusters are essential for higher functions. But how they interact, nobody has a clue. People, they know that, like the great Oliver Sacks, his whole thing about, if you get a blow on the head, your whole perspective can be shifted, utterly shifted, right? It's incredible what the brain is and what it does and what it allows you to do. Like, the things that you see in sports, that's the body. That's the body, but that's the body being controlled by the brain.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like the quarterback is throwing to where the running back is going to be. You don't throw at the running back. You throw at a point in space. That's all calculated by our brain.
And covering football, they've just now, and it was by the point of a gun, it was because of the lawsuit, they've just now, over the last 10 years, to say, getting serious about concussions and brain trauma and CTE and the long-term effects of playing football and the short-term effects of playing football. Like, they're just now understanding that the brain is just as important as the brain. Oh, absolutely.
They denied it. The industries denied it for years. The auto industry, at one point, I remember when the three-point seatbelt was one of the arguments against the three-point seatbelt was that people didn't want their evening clothes to be wrinkled.
Right.
That was an actual argument
If it's either
that an industry made for why the three-point seatbelt wasn't gonna work.
the conditions
This is the thing. I mean, it's kind of, capitalism is one of the only areas where a company can market a product that they know is going to kill
as well, so it stays
their
in
customers.
Stillway, but he's going to be
They know, they do the research, and they know
another look
that
that swing of
ingesting this thing is going to lead to
more angle.
negative health outcomes, and they make
It's the draw with the
campaigns like that. Obey your thirst. I was like, yo, before you get to fashion,
right hand.
before you what I mean? Obey your thirst. I mean, they're cutting right through, and those things, they're cutting right through to, your centers of reason. Say, yo, man, I shouldn't do this. They cutting right to that. The double down, right? Getting you to buy lotto tickets, to buy Powerball tickets, getting us to now. It's not just sports. You can bet on just about anything. Everything. And basically, our collective narcissism is being massaged. Like, we're the, like, I feel lucky. God's looking out for me. All these sorts of things.
I'm going to get over. I've got some information that's going to put me ahead of everybody else.
That's connected. That's connected to the conspiracy thing. All of these things are they're not completely different spheres.
Nope, not at all.
They're not completely different spheres. I tell you something. Liquid Death is one of the most fabulously marketed products of all time. It's just water. And it's called Liquid Death. There's something transgressive about Liquid Death. Wow, you really doing something. You drink it, like, you know what I mean.
And we're all just like, yeah, we want that. We got to have that.
You know what? If somebody comes up with some conspiracy soda, you know what? Ain't nobody going broke. You put all the conspiracies on a can. You put the Knights of Malta and all that. You put all of that
Conspiracy, sir.
Conspiracy, and make it an energy drink while you at it.
Doesn't cover the false front.
That's my exit plan out of the
Just remember this, remember this, Rod. Remember, man, you got to cut a brother a slice.
Trust me, you're in. Because when the eventual lawsuit comes, I'm just going to point him to this conversation, be like, no, Vernon told me to do this.
Listen, a conspiracy sold a 6-pack. No one's going broke. No one's going broke.
Anywho, we time is money, so I don't want to take up a lot of your time. But just a couple more things.
Yeah.
Certain songs. Which Way to America is
Mm-hmm.
the absolute perfect end to Vivid. I just want to tell you.
5 times.
Absolutely perfect. I don't know if that was planned, if that was happenstance, but damn it, y'all nailed it. Y'all stuck the landing on Vivid.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. That's the other tune that Mick Jagger produced 2 songs on Vivid. He produced Glamour Boys and he produced Which Way to America. And Which Way to America is just that, that thing about we're being shown one thing and what we're living is something else. And this is so funny now because so many of the references are deeply dated, right? But you know what I mean? But thinking about streaming, thinking about all the things that are happening now, so much of it is still holds tight. So much of it, Which Way to America. One of the things I used to love, about the Jerry Springer show is that Jerry Springer, for all of its exploitation, Jerry Springer showed what was really happening in America between people. Like people have been getting together across every kind of line you could think of, gender lines, racial lines. And I remember he had this one show, and there are these 3. This dude basically was having secret relationships with these 3. As a skinny black dude. And he's having the situation with these 3 blonde women. And these women are ready to come to blows over this cat. And I was like, this is what's happening. This is what's actually happening in America. Things are much more complicated. Things are much more layered. Things are much more out the box. Than you can. I remember here in Staten Island, there was a case where there was a guy who was the woman was was Russian, and she wanted her black boyfriend to murder her husband, and he went to the cops and said, "I'm not trying to kill nobody," and I'm thinking, these are the things that are really happening out here.
In my own backyard.
In my own backyard. So when you say Which Way to America, it's America is every kind of which way. And this is one of the things that there's always been something else going on that people ain't talking about. And that's also why the directions to America is so confusing. Because people are saying one thing and doing the exact opposite at all times.
100%. And you think they tell you that this is a land where everyone is equal, and if you work hard, you'll get ahead, and everyone's got rights. And as we are unfortunately seeing, just on a very hyper level, that's not the case right now.
Well, man, it's a cover story. You know what? I was going to tell you something. So I came up with this thing. I said, yo, you know what? I figured out how to deal with it without having to take a knee, right? So all you do when you do the Pledge of Allegiance, you put your hand over your heart, you say all the words, right? You say all the words, and and the only thing you do at the very end is and liberty and justice for y'all. That's all you gotta do. All you gotta do is say y'all instead of all, and you'll be straight.
Oh man. That sounds like something Malcolm X would say. Pride.
Yes.
Don't ask me.
With Calhoun too.
Imagine he'd be
Don't
sitting
ask me why I play this
now he
music.
finds himself three back.
What a story.
That hit me right between the eyes too, because
In our house after that win.
just like you, I grew up
Really emotional.
R&B, Motown, soul, funk. Rock and roll was white boy music. And yeah, I knew about Jimi Hendrix, but that was it as far as someone who looked like me playing rock and roll music.
Over the top of the flagstick.
I'd get introduced to you guys and MTV too. MTV television
Up there, that's okay.
introduced me to rock and roll, and then to see you guys playing the music. I didn't know about King's X. I didn't know about
Fabulous
Great
band.
Bad Brains. You know, and so I didn't know about Fishbone. I didn't know. I had no idea. So for you guys introduced me to this music with Vivid, and then I hear I play this music. It's my culture. Like yeah, man. Like people who look like this is our music. And then you then you think about it, and you're informed and you're educated. Like, of course, rock and roll is black music. Yes, of course. Naturally, we invented it. You know what I mean? To hear you guys vocalize that was huge.
The thing is, people find how you have to express yourself in life, right? So Tracy Chapman, she did something so remarkable in her time, because she came at it from her own voice. She came at it without apology. She came, she came straight with it, and then it's very interesting. Like recently, Flea, the bassist from Red Hot Chili Peppers, put out a record. He's got a record just out now called Onara, right? And he's got a cover of Frank Ocean's "Thinking About You," and it's so moving because it took so long for a song like "Thinking About You," which talks about a same-sex relationship. It took
13.
so long
This is the third
for that to happen. And what Flea does, it's just a beautiful, very human, and he also has a cover of Wichita Lineman, which Kool and the Gang did a cover of Wichita Lineman. So it's really about the things that move us across all the lines, right? Across all the lines, all the barriers.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank you and your band for not only your music, but
much better leave
the themes of love and pride and self-pride and black pride. Like just thank you, because again to me, I know a lot about this, young black men.
Nice little wrap up here, lady.
That meant a whole hell of a lot. So to get that coming from you guys and for the music behind it to be so good, and you guys, as they say now, living your raps, actually living what you're talking about. So greatly appreciated. So I'll end here with my top 5 guitars, and if you'll indulge me.
Okay.
I have a list of them in no particular order, and I'll just drop them. And if you don't mind, just share a thought about the guitars, the story as I name them. So, like I said, no particular order. I'll go with a fellow Texan, and the only thing good to come out of Dallas ever, and that's the great Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh man. Well, Stevie was such a not just a fabulous guitarist, but he was a fabulous representative of everything that's groovy about Texas. He was his song Crossfire, what I mean? There's so many things. His version of Little Wing, his instrumental version of Little Wing. He just was the thing that's great about Stevie Ray Vaughan is that you could hear his influences. He doesn't deny them. You could hear Albert King, and you could hear Hendrix, but what you hear most is Stevie Ray Vaughan. And that's a remarkable thing. When the influences are not hidden, it's like a magician you know,
Ours are never
with short sleeves, right?
15 live with speed for Birdie.
That's a great saying. No, you're 100% correct. You hear Superstition and
Oh,
yeah,
man.
Stevie's song, but you hear Stevie Ray Vaughan. You know, you hear when he covered Hendrix, you know, Voodoo
Oh,
Child.
yeah.
I mean, his version of Voodoo Child is incendiary. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you can hear Jimmy, but that's Stevie all
Yeah.
over that band.
It's like you hear Jimmy on the way to Stevie. Like, that's the
Right.
thing.
Yeah,
You
he's the
hear,
conduit. Yeah.
you know, you hear Albert, but it's Albert on the way to Stevie.
Yeah.
Gary Woodland, Dottie was a lot of short.
Mike
back there.
McCready.
Not
of
surprising.
Pearl Jam.
Oh, wow.
But this green.
Mike McCready. Man, you know, talk about a brilliant post Hendrix
He needs to go.
kind of player, but he's also, I mean, he gives the spark,
Just cannot
to
believe
that
how
band,
slow
to
it is
me.
from back there.
you know? He's dope. I haven't seen Mike in years, man. You just made me think about him. I hadn't seen him in a grip.
His solos,
Good start. It's been red figures all day long.
every solo he does, I'm a fan. Every solo
Knocks that out, he'll stay, and red figures 7-1.
Well, today,
they're all
very, very
I
good.
think of Nothing As It Seems, you know, Even Flow is kind of the one everybody,
That's what everybody knows.
I think that's the one everybody knows. But, you know, the deeper you go to Colorado, I just think all of his solos are absolutely right on
Into
time.
that right bunker.
Right on, man.
And just to go back to Stevie Ray Vaughan,
One of the best tee shots in here.
satellite radio, just flip it
Mission?
around. Crossfire was the song I heard today. His first song I mentioned. Yeah,
Yeah.
Divine Intervention, who knows? Another Texas boy, Dimebag Darrell.
In the greens.
Oh man, now you know the cowboy from hell, right?
Yeah.
You know, Dimebag was great. He was great because he didn't. He's sort of a metal. He didn't care about metal conventions though. Like he used to use the whammy pedal. You know, he would just do whatever he felt like doing, and he just expanded. You know, where the guitar could be in the genre, big time.
It's been short and left.
And you don't have Dimebag if there is no Eddie Van Halen. So that's
Well, yeah.
my other guitarist on the list, Eddie Van
Oh
Halen.
yeah. Well, Eddie changed the whole. You know, Eddie, and in fact, like Frank Zappa, you reached out to him and said, "Thank you for changing what the guitar is." You know, he's just a fundamental. You know, one of the things you know, Eddie, nobody was more joyful in playing the guitar.
So he's
You know, the way he did. He was
doesn't have that tap.
obviously great, obviously an innovative. A part of his innovation was he brought, you know, just the kind of joy. As you know, as well as his innovations, he brought joy back to playing like that.
For someone who was so scared to be on stage, he always had a smile on his face, and that joy always comes through. There's not been a moment since 1984 where I have not heard the Open to Panama and a smile has not come across my face.
Oh yeah.
You cannot help but smile when you hear him play, you know, that song and other songs. Last guy on this, one last thing about Eddie Van Halen. A buddy of mine said Eddie Van Halen is the Michael Jordan of guitar. He's not the first guy to come along and be great, but you know he's one of, if not
He
the
changed it.
greatest.
Yeah.
Just by listening.
He changed it up.
Last guy on this list of my top 5 favorite guitarists, and maybe I lied a little bit. There is some sort of an order. Vernon Reid.
Oh Lord, I'm not gonna talk about myself. I don't talk about myself. Hell no. Oh hell no. Oh hell no. But I appreciate you. I appreciate making your pantheon. I ain't gonna talk about that. I ain't gonna talk about that. No.
Well, I'll talk about you. You in the entire band, obviously, you know, Corey and Will and Doug, you guys opened up a world to me that I didn't know I could enjoy, a world that I was told that I shouldn't be a part of. You know, that's white boy music. I know you've heard that a million times. And
Did get all of them?
just to me, like with Eddie Van Halen. I listen to you
The short arms.
there's a joy there. There's a joy that I feel, and just like Eddie, just like Stevie, just like Dimebag, and just like Mike McCready, Vernon Reid is playing guitar when you hear it, and just make no mistake about it. And, Tom Morello's on that list. Just dudes who when you hear it, you know exactly who it is. And there's been hundreds of millions of people who put a guitar around their neck and try to play. Only a handful of people, in my estimation, have made it their own and have their own distinct sound. And you have one of those sounds. And I'm so blessed and appreciative to be talking to you. And I want to end with this, with lyrics from the song you wrote, This Is the Life. In your real life, treat it like it's special. Every time. In your real life, treat it like it's special. In your real life, try to be more kind. In your real life, think of those that love you. In this real life, try to be less blind. This is the life you have. Every single time I hear it, I can't even read it without it getting to me. I've lived my childhood dreams covering sports. I've talked to commissioners. I know Jerry Rice. That's the craziest thing in the world. I've interviewed a lot of people, but this is the most personal and this is the most special conversation I've ever had. And I just want to thank you for those lyrics, for others and the music, and thank you and the entire band. But thank you for sharing your art and your life with us and with me. I couldn't be more thankful for your time.
Rod, thank you, man. I'm so glad we finally got a chance to do this. And I can be a scatterbrain and I'm all over the place at all times. But I always mean well, and it's like I'm so glad that we finally did this, and I appreciate your patience. I think. With interacting with people, it can be difficult because there's like you said, time is money, and time is all of the things. Like This Is the Life is a song. Even though I wrote the lyrics, it's also there's a part where I say in this other life your loved ones never die, and that is just. It's a kind of lacerating thing because it's one thing when you're being clever to write something, but when you live it, the fact that Greg Tate is no longer with us. I mean, this is this thing is real. Yeah. It is very real. So I appreciate you. We don't know each other, but we know each other from Twitter, right? But those kind of I think about Lan Martinez, who's my first follower, somebody I didn't know, from San Antonio. Great artist, and it's weird, you know what I mean? I feel very close to this person who I've never met, and that's the thing about this whole social construct is that, it can be all of these things, but it can actually be something real. And this is it's kind of like, it's not like a video game where you get to respawn, and just being aware of that, it really moves me that the song moves you because it's
shot from there.
It's funny, when the band was, all of that and and I came up with this, and then the thing that I didn't know is that this song is gonna haunt you, dude. Like you're gonna, you know what I mean? In the midnight hour, you know what I mean? You go in the midnight hour, and I think that's and all those, and honestly, I give, Corey Glover brought those words to life. He brought. He brings these things to life, and we're a band for real. And whatever, I can, I actually was quipping. I said, we really are a cult band.
Full circle. Full circle.
You know what I mean? But that's real. You know what I mean? And it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. It doesn't. I don't take it for granted. So, man, thank you for this, and I'll see you back on campus. Yeah?